As much as we would love to be able to go into an organization and start with a blank slate, in fact, how awesome would this be? There is no existing network, and the company has plenty of money, has oodles and oodles of money that they're going to give to you so that you can implement the most sophisticated, optimized, scalable network yet that touches on every aspect of major Cisco technological advancements like wireless, security, voice over IP, video over IP for telepresence. And they just say, look, design from the ground up, there's nothing that's going to be possibly in your way. Well, unfortunately, this is very unrealistic, and we have to integrate typically with an existing network infrastructure. In this nugget, we'll expound upon how simple it is to properly characterize the existing network. Now, when we characterize the existing network, we're typically going to do at least two of these three things. We always are going to want to go into that network infrastructure, and we are going to want to verify that we can pull and evaluate their existing documentation. And you better get ready here to do a lot of querying of that customer, because what you're probably going to find is the existing documentation is not up to speed with exactly what you need that documentation to possess. And when I say the documentation might not be up to speed, it might not even exist. So we're going to go through carefully what they have for existing documentation, and we'll talk more about this in a moment. Then we're typically going to perform some type of a network audit using tools that they possess and tools that we bring in. Both of those potentially could be used, our tools and their tools. And we'll talk and give examples about tools later on in this nugget. And then finally, we might even have to get out a traffic analysis tool and actually perform some traffic analysis against their network to ensure that we have adequately and accurately categorized it and characterized it. Now, when you're gathering this existing documentation, one of the things that you want to do is really put together all the relevant information for particular network sites that are in the organization. Be real sure that you get contact information for who to call, get hours of operation, get the relevant security procedures and policies. You don't want to violate the security procedures of the organization as you're attempting to characterize that existing network, and also figure out exactly what the equipment locations are in those sites. You might have a large regional office, and it might not be all that straightforward of where the network equipment is actually located in that large regional office. Make sure you pull together all of the existing physical infrastructure documentation and any logical infrastructure documentation. Remember, logically, they may show something like, site A transfers information directly with site B. But we know, of course, that physically there might be two switches that are used in site A and then an edge router, and then a service provider cloud, and then another edge router, and then maybe it's three switches in site B. So we want to distinguish the physical infrastructure and make sure that documentation is complete, and distinguish this from the potential logical infrastructure. Again, we're going after all possible documentation that they might have, and we want to ask the question, is it complete? And is it accurate? So we'll have to be analyzing that as we obtain their documentation. Now, of course, one of the ways in which we're really going to get to validate their existing documentation is that we are going to perform some level of an audit on their network. That's right. And as we alluded to, we might even go in and do traffic analysis with some of these tools. Remember, we'll bring a set of tools to the equation. We'll bring a set of tools to the consulting engagement, and they'll typically have some tools. So, one of the things that we do is after we gather all their existing documentation, we will typically query them about what tools that they use to obtain information about their network. Maybe the company uses Cisco Works LAN management system, the old Cisco Works LMS. I say this is old because Cisco now has replaced this with a product called Cisco Prime. But for many years, companies did Cisco Works LMS product. They may already have this, and we can already obtain a great amount of information from that product. If they are lacking tools that will give us the information we need about their network, then that's when we can go ahead and introduce some of our own tools into the equation. Now, a great tool that's built into Cisco Catalyst switches that we often see used for the network audit and perhaps even protocol analysis is SPAN. And there are some variations I want to teach you about SPAN. But first, let's talk about this switched port analyzer. You know what a switch will do. It will take the traffic that is moving from one PC that's plugged into it to another PC that's plugged into it, and it'll make sure that that traffic only goes between those two PCs. So if you plug in a network analyzer or a probe, that's my attempt at a magnifying glass, that probe is going to have a problem. It's not going to see the traffic of PC1 going to PC2 because the switch will do its job and it will keep that traffic from going out to the analysis software. So what the span feature does is it mirrors or copies frames out to the analyzer. So this is a very powerful tool. Now that's just basic span. What is RSPAN? RSPAN stands for remote span. And as you might guess, what we're going to do is we're going to be able to send that traffic over to the analyzer if it is plugged in on some remote system. So here's the analyzer now. We remove it from here. We plug it in over at switch 2, and we're going to be able to forward the traffic over to that particular destination now, even though it is on a remote switch. Pretty neat. Now, I do not think that ER span will come up in the CCDA, but since it is a span variation, I wanted you to be aware of it. With ER span, what we're going to do is we're really going to have the analyzer in a remote location. Here's a router. Maybe it connects to another router at another office that we have. That's R2. And then that connects to some switch 3 that's beyond those routers. Sure enough, with ER, or encapsulated remote span, we can go ahead and send the traffic in an encapsulated routable form over to a remote device. So with span, the analyzer is local to the switch. With remote span, it is not. With ER span, it can even be farther away. By the way, how do you think in remote span we end up carrying that traffic through the switched infrastructure like that? Well, you guessed it. We use a remote span VLAN. That's right, a VLAN that is designed to copy the remote switched port analyzer traffic. So, a wonderful tool built into our Cisco devices called SPAN that we can use to audit and analyze traffic within an existing network infrastructure. Yet another great tool that we can use that's built right into the Cisco devices is NetFlow. NetFlow is basically kind of accounting software, for your TCP/IP traffic that's flowing through your network. You can get basically a phone bill style presentation of how your IP traffic is flowing through your environment. Let me show you how you would set this up on a Cisco router. So R1 here has a connection over to a device R2, and they're connected over the fast Ethernet 0/0 interface. I can go in and I can say, look, I want to track the IP flows that are coming inbound on this interface. I also want to track the flows that are going outbound on this interface. Now that I've turned on the feature under the interface, I can go globally and say, take this information and export it to a NetFlow collector that I've got out on the network, and we'll just say it's out at 10.1.10.100, and I want to send it over UDP port 99. I can say the particular version of NetFlow that I want to use. For instance, here I'll set it to the latest version 9, and I'll say, go ahead and take this traffic and source it from the loopback 0 interface on this router. So there's a real typical NetFlow configuration. Now let me generate some traffic. So I'll go ahead and ping my neighboring device, and we'll repeat this 1,000 times. Or 100 times, that'll do. So we are sending traffic to our neighboring device. Now, if we go ahead and do show IP cache flow, we will literally see that NetFlow is tracking this traffic that is exiting the interface and entering the interface as a result of this activity. Notice we get a nice chart here that gives us IP packet size distribution for the traffic that's coming in and out over this particular interface. So NetFlow, another great tool that's built right into our Cisco devices that can really help us with the network audit or the network traffic analysis. Yet another tool that we have built into our Cisco devices that we can leverage is network-based application recognition. NBAR has two main jobs that it performs, and I think this is why a lot of people get confused about NBAR. The most popular job is that it's used in quality of service configurations. You see, NBAR can automatically recognize voice over IP traffic, for example, and distinguish that from like SQL Server traffic. So we love NBAR in QoS because it's going to automatically recognize traffic for us. But the other job that NBAR can do that we're interested in is it can do protocol analysis. Yeah, it can run on your system and literally identify all the traffic that's flowing through a particular device. So it's a built-in protocol analyzer. And that's what we would be interested in when it comes to characterizing a network. So you might be pretty impressed and surprised that you've got a traffic analyzer built into your Cisco equipment, and you might wonder if it's difficult to use. Well, it is definitely not. Watch this. We go into an interface. So I'll go into that fast Ethernet 0/0 interface we were working with earlier, and we say IP NBAR protocol discovery. That's it. You'll notice there's a delay on the router as this protocol analyzer feature gets enabled. But that's it. It is now doing the analysis. We'll go ahead and generate some traffic here. For instance, I'll do a ping. And then in order to see the results of this traffic analysis, we do show IP NBAR protocol discovery. We could put some optional delineators after that command, but notice we've got a ton of ICMP traffic going on because, of course, that's the only traffic form we've been working with, but it is built to recognize many different forms of traffic automatically, as you can see, including BitTorrent traffic, and even custom traffic definitions that we can define. So it's wonderful having these built-in tools that we can take advantage of for the network audit and subsequent traffic analysis. Now, in addition to the great tools that are built into the iOS software from Cisco, Cisco also recognizes awesome tools that are outside of their own creations. And Cisco in the CCDA points out NetIQ VivaNet Assessor. What a name. And this particular tool, as you can see, is really designed to assist with voice over IP deployments. Specifically, what this tool does is it checks the existing network and it runs a series of tests to ensure that existing network is ready for voice over IP. Wow, so what a valuable tool, giving us the ability to test thoroughly before we do a rollout, make sure voice over IP is going to work correctly. From an inventory perspective, there's InfoBlox Net MRI, which will literally allow us to discover and catalog the devices in the network infrastructure. Another popular tool is Netformix Design Expert. This tool literally is going to allow you to go in and fully catalog the existing network and then manipulate through design manipulations that you're going to make to that existing network. So Netformix Design Expert, another great product that Cisco recognizes. And finally, a series of products from SolarWinds, including the Network Performance Monitor. So obviously, if we were tasked with doing traffic analysis on the existing network, we might turn to this third-party network performance monitor to assist with that particular analysis. So in this nugget, we took a look at characterization of the existing network. We talked about how important it is to gather any existing documentation the organization might have, and then perform a network audit, and optionally go ahead and use tools either built into the Cisco devices or external tools that we can use to perform a traffic analysis. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.